Hello, hello, and welcome. I am so excited to introduce you to my Delilah collection. I am Sarah of SEK Handmade, and I am a crochet designer and teacher. I'm so excited to share with you my new collection and the inspiration and all of the details for it. But before we dive in, I want to tease you a little bit and tempt you to stay to the end of the video, because I'm going to share with you at the end some tips and tricks about how to style these patterns and leave you with a special discount code so that if you want to go snag these patterns, you'll get them at a special discount. Let's start off by talking inspiration. These patterns were all inspired by a stitch that I fell in love with many years ago and had placed into several more intermediate patterns that were a mix of other stitches and more complicated designs, like my Fiona series that has a cowl and a headband. It includes the half ring stitch and several other intermediate stitches. This fantastic stitch is also a part of my first bud scarf and my Aveen scarf, and I'm sure it will be highlighted in many other patterns. If you've been around, you know that my main goal as a designer and a teacher is to help you grow confidently in your craft. And I have my tiered pattern system that is designed specifically to do this. And while I love the half ring stitch, I had never used it in the tiered system to help you learn it from the very beginning to grow into those more advanced patterns. And so I knew right away that I absolutely wanted to do that. To create a tiered pattern system with the half ring stitch, I wanted to start with a small project that was easy to practice on, easy to frog back as you improved your skills, and that you could make over and over again until you really felt comfortable and mastered this stitch. That is where the Delilah Cozy came in. This small, simple, but gorgeously textured pattern will have you mastering the half ring stitch in no time, which is the whole point of the tier 1 patterns. Next, for the tier 2, I knew that I wanted a cowl, and I had been eyeing this Mobius strip design style for a while. Not being a super mathy person, I knew that I loved the shape that this created, but didn't really understand the concept behind it. So I dove in deep to figure out the Mobius strip, not only how to work it, but also how to teach it to you in a way that was fail-proof. I can tell you, when I figured it out, I was jumping up and down. I was so thrilled to know that I not only had this amazing shape, but that I had made it simple enough that anyone could master it. It is really so much fun to work. After the initial challenge of figuring out the shape and how to teach it in an easy manner, the next thing I learned about this cowl is that it is so soothing to make. Once you get past the first 3 rows, you just go literally around and around and around the Mobius strip until you're done. And in a time of stress or after a more complicated project, this is the definition of crochet and relax. After I had my cowl, I knew I needed some hats to go along with it. I fashioned these hats after one of my most favorite and most made crochet hat patterns, the Astoria beanie. Just like the Astoria beanie, they feature one gorgeous stitch that gives a unified texture all over the hat, and it comes with instructions for a brimmed style and a brimless style, as well as slouchy and fitted versions. All right, let's talk yarn choice. For my Delilah Cozies, I used 2 different yarns. This yarn is from Blue Sky Fiber. It is their wool stock worsted, and it is in the colorway Golden Meadow. This is one of my favorite colorways from them. It is this gorgeous citrusy green and is really bold. The yarn is so wonderful to work with. It has a nice squish and really shows the texture so nicely. The second yarn I used is one of my most favorite and most used yarns, and that is, of course, Malabrigo Rios. The Malabrigo Rios colorway is magenta, which is number 214, and it's just stunning. Malabrigo Rios comes in a 100-gram skein that contains 210 yards. Woolstock worsted comes in a 50-gram skein that contains 123 yards. When I first started looking for yarns, I knew that this would be the perfect project for a Malabrigo Rios yarn. It really shows the gorgeous texture of the stitches while adding an extra layer of interest to the whole entire pattern with the subtle color changes that don't really pool anywhere. I am just so pleased with how this yarn worked with this pattern. Once I made the cowl, I of course knew I needed a matching hat. You guys, it has been so hard not to wear this hat everywhere because I absolutely love it. You can see it is made in matching yarn that did pool in kind of an interesting pattern, but honestly, that doesn't really bother me. I kind of think it adds an extra interest to the whole thing. Both my brimless hat and my small size cowl are made in the colorway Liquid Amber, and it is number 618. I will say the one thing about Malabrigo yarn is that their colorways do not have dye lots, and sometimes the colors kind of evolve based on if they were dyed together or not. It actually took me a while to decide that this was indeed the colorway I had used because I have another skein of Liquid Amber in my stash right now that looks quite different from this. Once I had worked up my small cowl and my brimless hat, I knew that I needed a hat with a brim and a nice tall cowl. For these two projects, I dove into my stash and was so excited to use a yarn that I had had hanging out for a little while. This yarn is from Windmill Fibers, which is unfortunately a yarn company that's no longer around. It was run by my wonderful friend Janine of Capital Crochet, and she has since stopped dyeing yarn. Several years ago, I had gotten 3 colorways from her: this medium tone, the light tone, and then the darker tone. And I thought this would be the perfect neutral mix to really show off the fun shape of this cowl, and I was not disappointed. I highly recommend a neutral palette and stripes, or even a bold palette and stripes. If you're ready to dive into the cozy, you're gonna need to grab yourself a USH 5-point hook. Whether you're making the brimless or the brimmed hat, you're going to start off with a USJ 6.0 hook. Then if you're making the brimmed hat, to add the brim at the end, you're going to need a USH 5-point hook. I wanted to make sure that the cowl had extra coziness, floofiness, and drape, and so for the cowl, you're going to need a USK 6.5 hook. One of the reasons the half ring stitch is one of my favorite stitches is because it's worked over a stitch multiple of 1, which makes it extremely flexible and super customizable. So let's talk about gauge and how to customize your cozy, your hat, and your cowl. The cozy pattern is designed to fit a standard to-go cup. But as we know, cups come in many different sizes, and I even had the fun idea of using this to do one of those pint ice cream covers. Being worked in the round, all you need to do is to add or subtract stitches to make sure that it fits your item snugly. I do recommend making it a little smaller than the item you're going to put it on, and that helps it stay put instead of sliding on and off too easily. When it comes to customizing any hat, the first thing I want you to do is measure your head. Yes, we do not think of ourselves as having different sized heads, but just like we have different sized feet and different sized hands, we have different sized heads, and you gotta know what size you're aiming for. All of my hats have a fitted top to them, which makes customization a little more tricky. If you need your hat to be just slightly bigger or slightly smaller, then I recommend changing your hook size to accommodate the size difference. I also have a table in my pattern that tells you the length of your brim, the body of your hat and the crown shaping. So that helps make it extra easy to adjust the height once you've adjusted the circumference. The hat pattern also has lots of additional tips to help you make a hat that fits your head or someone else's head perfectly. The main consideration for sizing of your cowl is the circumference that is made by the number of stitches you have. So you can adjust this to be more narrow and fitted if you'd like it to be a child size, or even bigger and wider if you wanted it to cover your whole shoulders. That would be so much fun. Once you get your circumference just how you like it, then you're going to just keep working in the Mobius strip, which works out from the center, and you can either just keep going until you run out of yarn, or you can decide the specific height that you'd like it to be. Friends, one of the biggest benefits of working the Mobius strip is that it is just so easy to wear. You simply put it over your head, and it looks amazing. There's no worrying about it moving or falling off or looking funky. It just twists in the most wonderful way and makes you look fancy with no effort. Now, you can wear it with the twist in the front, the twist off to the side, or if you want it to be more like your typical cowl, you can just adjust the twist to the back and it'll sit upright more like a typical cowl. If you want even more structure, you can take it and fold that front down, and then it stands up even a little better. With it off my neck, you can see that the larger cowl is quite a bit larger. It is both wider and significantly taller than the small cowl. It works the same way though. You're just gonna slip it over your head and be extra, extra cozy. You can have the twist in the back. And again, you can have this up nice and high. If it was cold outside, you could even tuck it up so that your nose and ears stay super cozy. Again, you could fold it in half to give extra structure to the cowl. Turn it around to the front, and it's got that nice little almost collar shape to it that I just think is so lovely, and the stripes really accentuate the shape of it. I do love to accessorize my accessories, and so another fun thing to do with any cowl you have is to add a shawl cuff to it. You can simply put this on at the twist, and it adds a nice little emphasis on your cowl, and especially on days when you want to wear this more as a fashion piece than to keep you warm, this brings it away from your neck a little bit and helps to keep you looking good without overheating. Wearing a brimmed hat is super simple. There's really just one way that I love to wear this, and that's just by putting it on my head and being cozy. With my slouchy brimless hat though, there are lots of ways to wear it, so let me show you how. The first thing that I'd like to note is that I love the texture of the right side of the half ring stitch, but I also love the texture of the wrong side. And so one of the simple things that I do is I wear it both right side out and inside out. You can also wear it slouchy, so I just pull it down so it covers my ears, and then I take the back of the hat and smush it down so that I don't have hat just sticking out the back of my head. If it's really chilly outside though, I like to take this and pull it down so that it becomes fitted on the top of my head, and I have a double brim to keep my ears super warm. One of the fun things that you can do with this double brim though is you can adjust how high and low the brim of the hat is, and I really like this high-low look of pulling it down more on one side and leaving it higher up so that it's got kind of an asymmetrical look on the other side. super fun. Thank you so much for joining me to learn all about the Delilah collection. I had so much fun sharing all the details with you. As a thank you for sticking around, I'd love to give you a discount code. Use the discount code Delilah20 at checkout on Ravelry or Etsy to save 20% on any one individual Delilah pattern. Use the code Delilah25 if you found more than one pattern that you'd like to purchase. Any purchase of multiple patterns with the code Delilah25 will save you 25% on multiple patterns. Both of these codes are good on Ravelry and Etsy, and they start on January 11th and end at the end of the day on January 16th. Thank you again for joining me today, and happy crafting!